Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I am so excited for all of us to learn from today's guest because this is an entrepreneur who not only is very clearly super growth oriented and very committed in building an incredible company like she already has, and it's expanding really quickly, but this is someone that the more I looked into her business and her work, it is so clear that she cares so much about understanding and serving her customers deeply. So let me introduce you to today's guest and fellow entrepreneur. Her name is Ann Edwards. Ann is a director of physical therapy and the founder of TherAnnu Restorative Spa, which is a fast-growing wellness brand that combines hands-on therapy with innovative restorative services like cryotherapy, infrared sauna, and so much more. Ann's mission is to make true wellness both accessible and sustainable, not just luxurious. She's also leading the expansion of TherAnnu through franchising. That's part of why I say she must be incredibly busy behind the scenes, helping others bring therapeutic care to their own communities. We're in for a treat, whether you're interested in thinking like a growth builder, like a typical entrepreneur with big ambitions and big dreams, or an executionist. Ann is actually doing it. We're in for a treat today. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Ann Edwards. All right, and I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here, Brian.
Heck yes, I love your business, and the more that I research it, it is clear that your business exists not for you and not for your team, but for the people that you serve. So I'm so excited for you to take us beyond the bio. Who's Ann? How did you start doing all this cool work?
Yeah, so I've been a physical therapist for over 20 years now. Started out in the corporate world for about 10 years. That was really, really good and pivotal in helping to build kind of the business side of what I do now. Decided to open my own practice. So it was a little scary at first, but it was just me in an office. I was the receptionist. I did the laundry, I did the cleaning, and I treated the patients. Very rewarding, and that was really my stepping stone into what is TherAnnu now. So we gradually built it up. We moved into a larger location, started adding services like massage, whole body cryotherapy, infrared sauna, things like biomat, some kind of cutting edge therapies that a lot of people didn't know about, they weren't really doing, but really made a difference with my patients. So we were then combining it. Dry needling is really my specialty. So we started combining dry needling with these high-tech services, and we got great results. So that started snowballing, and then in 2020 we actually moved into a larger location, and now it is the business that we have now, where we've combined holistic skincare, IV therapy. We've added more services like salt room and compression therapy. So it's really been an amazing journey.
Yeah, I love that overview, Ann, especially because you called something out that I knew we would talk about in today's conversation, and that is when you started your own practice, you no longer were just the practitioner, you also were the receptionist. You were the one doing laundry. Talk to us about that transition, because what I always find fascinating about practitioners in their field is that when you're a practitioner, you get to do the thing, but when you become an entrepreneur and a business owner, you now have so many other responsibilities. Clearly, that drive and that ambition fueled you to take those challenges on, and of course you've grown far beyond that. And we're going to talk about how awesome TherAnnu is these days, but Ann, what did that drive look like? Because it wasn't enough to just be the practitioner. I want to understand that entrepreneurial ambition.
I don't know where it came from, but I just knew it was there. I felt the need for more, especially after, doing the whole corporate thing and the traditional PT, where, I was the employee, and I just felt like I needed to grow. I needed to stretch my wings. I like the creativity side of entrepreneurship. I like the problem solving, where things aren't mundane. So I think that was really my drive, was to stretch myself and to grow. And then, it was a little painful at first with, having all of that responsibility, but again, that became routine and simple. And then at that point, again, I wanted to expand and to get into more, which I'm doing again now with franchising.
Yeah, so let's talk about those expansions, Anne, because when people look at TherAnnu, and we're going to drop those links obviously down below in the show notes, but as soon as people find what it is that you do, it's incredibly comprehensive, Anne, and I can't even imagine, that's why I'm excited to hear it from you, I can't even imagine what the step-by-step looked like to build out such a wide suite of services. Just to list a few for listeners who haven't seen your business just yet, you have physical therapy, massage therapy, stretch therapy, skin therapy, nutrient IV therapy, so much goodness that you're providing through TherAnnu. Obviously, it didn't start out that way. What did that progression and evolution look like?
It was really very step by step in what do my clients need. And with my science background, I wanted to make sure that they were services that worked, that were going to make a difference. I want to look at the physiology. I want to see what's happening on the cellular level with these services, that they're not just hoopla or, the latest thing, that they are actually going to improve someone's quality of life. So that was really, the step-by-step progression, as I would look at each service one at a time and how does this fit in the model. And to be honest, sometimes I had to cut things out where I would have a million services if I could, because I think there are so many great options out there in terms of wellness. But I feel like I pulled together what I feel is a really nice complementary blend of services.
Yeah, and when you talk about that, clearly you go straight to your customer, and I love the fact that that's the entrepreneur in you, is that we all suffer from that of there's so many things I want to do, but obviously we have to balance the things we want to do with what actually matters to the customer. You seem so dialed in and to your customer, and I would imagine a lot of that is being a practitioner. You are literally there talking to them every single day, whereas a lot of online agency owners, for example, they're not next to physically their ideal customers every single day. Talk to us about that obsession about serving the customer, though, because it seems like whether we talk about your service line expansion or the way that you operate, the communication that you have, it seems like that's such a driving force. Where does that come from? What are those conversations? What are your observation techniques? I really want to get inside that part of your mind.
Yeah, and I think that really comes down to my physical therapy education, where we are taught to get to the root cause, figure out what is going on with this person. And sometimes it's not your first guess. Sometimes you're working on something, maybe they're making some progress, maybe they're not, but you're not quite where you need to be. So you need to shift. You need to figure out what are we missing in this picture? What do we need to pull in to really help them reach their goals? And I feel like in business is very similar, where things might be not optimal. They're going smoothly, but they could be better. What do we need to change? What do we need to tweak here to make this the best business it can be, so that we can serve our clients?
Yeah, it's interesting because in marketing and sales, we often hear that old adage of sell them what they want, but give them what they need. It seems to me like your services are really a blend of that, because a lot of times when people use the word holistic, I feel like it's overplayed. But in your case, it does seem to me that you guys, the holistic part it's right there in the headline on your website, all about you. It's all about the people that you serve. How much of it is that case? Going back to your training and your academic career, how much is it a case of, oh, someone comes in for this is what they think they want, but here's what they actually need? How do you put together that roadmap for each individual client?
So with TherAnnu, we have something called a wellness advisor consultation, which again, I think stems back from my physical therapy roots, that you want to sit down with the client and figure out what are their goals, what do they want to accomplish, what are their stumbling blocks with their life. And then we set up a plan specifically for them. And I feel like this is very important, not just for customizing it, but because we have such maybe unique services that someone off the street may not understand how this particular service could help them. So we help to create that exact map for them and put together packages and memberships that might help them save money along the way.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, especially because you called out right there that the market isn't even aware of so many of those solutions. And consumers, we don't live in this world the same way that you do. And so obviously I feel like cryotherapy, for example, that is becoming more and more mainstream. And I think within entrepreneurial circles, a lot of us pay a lot of attention to personal development and wellness and growth. But red light therapy, for example, I don't think my parents in a lot of their generation is familiar with what red light therapy is. How much of what you guys do behind the scenes, you talk about having that wellness advisor, how much of it is education? I'm curious how you've baked that in, because a lot of people might look at TherAnnu and say, oh, it's a wellness place. It's where I can go for all of that. But it seems to me like there's so many layers beneath it. I'm sure education is part of that. I'd love to get some insights on that.
Absolutely. Education is crucial, and that has been part of our stepwise growth, that we have to educate the clients and the staff on how these services work. We want to get them down to at least the higher level science behind it, so that we're advertising on Facebook, Instagram, we're giving little snippets of this is what this service can do for you. But then inside the business, we are sitting down with our staff with monthly staff meetings where we review what is whole body cryotherapy, how is it going to benefit the clients? What kinds of clients are going to be best for this? How frequently should they do this service? So that we can then educate the clients that are coming through the door and giving them really, best case scenario of how to progress with our services.
Yeah, and that introduces an entirely new complexity that all business owners face when it comes to growth, and that is hiring people and having a team. And I would imagine that it's hard enough doing it yourself when you start your own practice, but it introduces human problems when you start hiring people on. What were some of those growing pains like? Because here I was focused on the consumers and educating them, but you went straight to the team is equally, if not more important, because the education trickles down from there. What are some of those growth lessons that you learned along the way when it comes to bringing on new team members?
I think the biggest thing that we've learned is to hire based on attitude and potential. So it's bringing in those people who appreciate what we're doing. They appreciate holistic services. They're really friendly. They really want to help the clients, and they're eager to learn, because it is a lot to learn. It's not like, just maybe running a cash register where you don't have to know all of the products that a business is selling. You have to be able to understand, working for a business like this, understand really what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about your positioning in the marketplace. That's something that I'm so fascinated by, and because it seems like you've carved out, you use the word accessible, and again, that's one of those words that I think is overused, but I will say, just as an end consumer, an outside observer landing on your website, is it feels accessible. It feels intentionally different from a lot of the wellness services out there, and it's right there in your bio. I love that focus on accessibility and sustainability rather than just pure luxury. Talk to us about that position in the marketplace, because it's clearly strategic and intentional on your part, and I think that as outsiders it feels more inviting to us.
We want to be accessible to everyone. This shouldn't just be something that the super rich that they can go and spend $300 on a massage once a week because they want to relax. That's great, but we've got teachers coming in, we've got just everyday people that they make a place in their budget because of how good they feel when they're with us, when they come in. So we make sure that it feels accessible, it feels friendly, you feel like you're at home. We don't want you to feel like you're in a stuffy spa where we're judging you or it's intimidating or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that. And maybe this is a tough to answer question, but I would imagine part of the marketing challenge is letting people know how accessible this is, because a lot of people will see TherAnnu Restorative Spa and they're just like, yeah, spa. I think of all those luxurious pictures in my head from movies, and you're right. We all think, oh, that's for rich people. That may not be for me. How do you make it clear to people who haven't walked through your doors already how accessible it is? Is price something that you have to play on? Do you focus on the problems and the solutions that your customers or your future ideal customers are already thinking of? I'd love to get some of those marketing insights.
I think it's a little bit of each. I think it's the way we present our marketing with real in-house pictures is what we try to use, of showing, different types of people, of showing it that it is more of a relaxing, homey environment. And then we have to keep the prices so that they are affordable. And that's really where our memberships and packages shine, because, you can spend, like one of our examples, you can spend $99 a month and you can come in and have basically a mini spa day every month. You can have a full body massage, and you can do the sauna and whole body cryotherapy all for that $99. So I feel like that is affordable for the regular person, that we should be all taking care of ourselves in that way.
Yeah, so well said. And I'm appreciative of how open and transparent you are about pricing. I, as a podcast host, know that anytime listeners tune into an episode, they think, could I ever be able to afford something like this? So listeners, if you guys are in the Maryland area, and we're going to talk about geography later in this episode when we talk about Anne's expansion plans, then now you've seen it. I mean, it's that level of transparency, and pricing is always so difficult though, and a lot of business owners struggle with it. How did you arrive at your prices? I find that that's such a different and unique answer for all of us that often involves a lot of experimentation. What did that look like on your end?
I feel it's looking at our market. So looking at what are the other spas or wellness centers in the area charging for massage. That's part of it. We need to also make it so that we have a lot of providers that we pay on commission. So we need to make sure it makes sense for paying those providers. We also want to look at the structure of the a la carte services versus the memberships. We want to make sure that makes sense, that the a la carte services are a little more expensive so that the membership makes sense. And then a really unique thing about our model is that it's a flex membership. So you can choose which services you want to do within categories. So basically we've priced it so that our 1 hour massage, our 1 hour facial, our 1 hour reflexology, all of those are the same price so that they are fit within the same tier of membership. So that took a good amount of time to get right, but I think we're in a sweet spot right now.
Yeah, and it sounds to me like there's so many considerations even within those questions, which makes me wonder, Anne, about what your personal executive time looks like, because it sounds like on a strategic level, there's so much to consider, especially in the phase of growth that you're currently in, which is super exciting for the times coming ahead for your business. Are you carving out that intentional executive time? What does it look like? What sort of questions are you asking yourself? What sort of metrics are you paying attention to? Because it sounds like there's so many different moving parts in your business.
There really are. I spend about 20 hours a week treating. So, I'm doing the dry needling physical therapy appointments with patients for about 20 hours. So the other 20 plus hours a week, I am working on administrative. So that's meeting, with my spa manager. That is, doing our staff meetings. We have team meetings with our, with massage therapy meetings. We have skin therapy meetings where we can, get together as a group once a month. And then there's a lot that I get done at home, of course, which can be convenient, some of the back end finances and, things on the website and all of that. So, it's very doable, and I make sure to make time for my family, of course.
Yeah, I love that balancing act that we all have to play, but you have added another layer onto that balancing act, of course, with regards to franchising, which is a huge endeavor. I also feel like it's a goal for so many different entrepreneurs, especially ones that operate within communities such as your business. And where's the franchising ambitions come from, and what's that process been like as you sit down to map it out?
So this wasn't really on my radar. And then actually a physical therapist that worked for me was just getting into another franchise and pulled me aside one day and said, I think this model would be really good for franchising. So I started looking into it, and then I reached out to a consulting company that I met with. They felt like our model was appropriate. And so I dove in. I started working with them it took probably about a year to really get the model perfected. So, we worked on everything, the operations manual, the pre-opening manual, all of the advertising, the website, you name it. So it was a lot more than I anticipated it to be, but I feel like it was very rewarding, and I feel like I learned a lot, and there was a lot of growth that occurred during that time, and I'm very happy that I did it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I would actually imagine that through the process of franchising, you actually learned a lot about your own internal processes that we probably all take for granted. You're fully on the hook at that moment in time for having SOPs. You're fully on the hook for really putting pen to paper on all the things that previously lived inside of your mind. What were some of those eye-opening things that you realized along the way that you definitely took for granted, and probably a lot of us as business owners don't realize that it benefits us to document all of these things?
It really does. And a lot of it, I knew these were things that we needed to write down, that we needed to have these documents in an organized fashion. We had a lot of them already. They were just scattered everywhere. We had a lot of Google Docs, hard to find them sometimes, but I feel good about, the way we were able to kind of pull everything together in an organized fashion that, like you said, it not only helps future franchises, but it's going to help our internal corporate location.
Yeah, that said, Anne, one thing I've been interjecting into all of my conversations lately is, of course, AI. When you and I talk about balancing all of these things, as well as franchising, as well as personal life, you have a family, of course. How is AI impacting your workflows? How's it impacting your capacity? I'm super curious about how much it's involved in your field, in your business, in your life.
AI is a game changer, I must say. It was one of the franchise consultants that turned me on to it. I had never heard of it before last year, and it really has made a difference. I use it to fine tune things. So, maybe a document that I had created a few years ago, upload it, and I'll ask it to make this sound better, organize it in this way, things like that, and it really makes a difference.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk expansion plans then, because we've kind of teased about how franchising has been a part of your growth and on your expansion radar. When Anne Edwards sits down and asks the big question of where do I want to be, not only in the short-term future, but especially the long-term future, where's your head go? Is franchising a big push that you're going to be focusing on in the coming years, or is there still work to be done with your original location and your initial community? Where's your growth-oriented mindset go?
Yeah, I think it's a blend of the two. I really do enjoy treating, so I always want to have my foot in that somehow. But definitely getting into franchising and growing that side of the business is it's very intriguing and exciting for me. A lot of it is mentoring other entrepreneurs and being able to collaborate with them as well. I like talking business. I like diving in and figuring out, is this the best process? And did you guys find a better system? All of that, I think, it's growth, and it's exciting. It's fun.
Yeah, for sure. Well, then we're going to switch gears, Anne, because this is part of what I really enjoy about these conversations is towards the end, we switch the spotlight. We're not going to talk about TherAnnu now. We're going to talk about you, the entrepreneur, because you are one of us. And so with that in mind, you obviously have so much on your plate. We talked about both business-wise, but also personal-wise. What are some of obviously everyone is so attracted to the freedom of being a business owner and an entrepreneur. So talk to us about how it lived up to your expectations of owning your own business. But then, Anne, on podcasts, everything always sounds so rosy. So introduce us to some of those things that were a little bit of surprises that you realized, whoa, hold on, I'm going to have to grow and I'm going to have to learn to cope with this because it's not easy. And I think it's important that we always call that out.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I really love the entrepreneurial journey that I've been on. At first, when it was just me, that was difficult because everything fell on me in terms of if I wanted to take a vacation, it wasn't just the cost of the vacation, it was the loss in income during that week. So at least with a stage that I'm at now, if I step away from the treating role, I can go on vacation and the business is still bringing in money. But I do enjoy the freedom of being an entrepreneur. I like the flexibility. I like, the ability to kind of shift and try things out and experiment and be creative that maybe you wouldn't get as an employee. But yeah, it has its demands. I think the biggest demand is the staffing, the communication with your team, and making sure and getting them all on board. Sometimes that's a nice challenge, but it definitely can be a struggle sometimes.
Yeah, and speaking of that, obviously one word that we throw out a lot in entrepreneurial circles is that culture. It's on you, Anne. I mean, you are such a central part of creating that culture. What does that look like? Because dealing with people takes on a life of its own, because obviously you have all these independent thinkers. They're not AI, and that's also the beautiful part about the human experience. What has that side of the journey been like for you?
I think it comes down to how you interact with your staff and with everyone that you work with. That it's creating respect. I think it was the iFranchise group. One of the leaders there had told me it's very important to be fair and kind and firm are the three things that you need to be as a leader. So you want to be friendly and kind and giving, but you have to have that firmness, that accountability, that also, brings on the respect that we like to make sure is mutual within our facilities, that we value our employees as people, as individuals with opinions, and we want to make sure that we respect that.
Yeah, I love that approach. And that's such a clear takeaway for all of us. And that firmness is something that I started my first business when I was 19, and it was fun for me. And a lot of things are still fun for me, and I'm sure the same is true for you, but it is that reminder of being firm. Of course, we want to be friendly, we want to be fair, but we also need to maintain that executive role that we're all stepping into, which for so many of us, when we start our first business, that's our chance to have that firmness behind us. So I really appreciate those insights. I don't often ask this question on the air, but I'm personally very curious, just knowing that you're still practicing, you're still running your business, you're still, managing a household and a family and all of those things. And so with that in mind, what's your average day or week look like? I know how different every single day is for me personally across my businesses. I'm super curious, entrepreneur to entrepreneur, to hear what the life of Anne looks like, and if it's always changing or if routines are the name of the game for you.
Well, it will change based on my schedule treating clients. But the example, today I'm on a Peloton streak, so I've been waking up every morning. I hop on the Peloton. I get my breakfast. I do some work at the computer, usually while I'm having breakfast. Then, like today, doing a podcast, and then I'll be heading in. I start treating at 10 o'clock. I think I've got a meeting today in the middle of my shift, seeing clients, and then I think I have a call with a franchise company this afternoon, and then I'll probably come home and make dinner.
I love that. That is definitely varied. I figured variation would be a big part of your answer, and that's what keeps things fresh. I'm going to loop back in something that you said much earlier, which is, you knew somewhere deep down that you didn't want to feel like your life, your career, your days were mundane. And I feel like that's just a little glimpse, Anne, into one day where you're covering so many different grounds and also wearing so many different hats. So huge kudos to you for making it all work. This last question, I always love asking it because it's super broad. I have no idea which direction you're going to take it in, and that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and also knowing that you are one of us, you are an amazing entrepreneur doing big things and growing fast. What's that one piece of advice that you want to leave them with today?
That's a tough one. I think there's a lot of different avenues. I think have fun with the journey, I think, is probably the most important. Don't take things too seriously. Really enjoy and appreciate the position that you're in. And I feel like that will trickle down into everyone you associate with, really.
Yes, so well said. A constant reminder, and even that alludes to the delicate balancing act that we all have to play as entrepreneurs, is that we all obviously are very driven, very ambitious, and we're serious about the things that we're doing, but don't take it too seriously. Have that fun. I love that advice from you, Anne. I'm so appreciative of you sharing that with our audience. And what I'm really excited about is I fell in love with your business the second I landed on your website for the first time. It is so you focused, and when listeners go there, they're going to see why I say that. So, Anne, for listeners who do want to check out your business, whether it's in person, tease those geographical locations to us, or online, drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Yeah, so we're online at TherAnnu.com. You can check us out. If you are interested in franchising, you would go to TherAnnu.com. We're looking for franchises in the local states, so Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Virginia, West Virginia, Delaware. So kind of this Northeast area we're looking to expand. So if you're an entrepreneur that wants to get into this space, we would love to talk to you.
Yes, and listeners, you already know the drill. We're making it as easy as possible for you to find both of those links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. We're also linking to Anne's personal LinkedIn, so if you want to reach out, continue the conversation, you want to talk about franchising, or you heard how much she loves collaboration and partnership and bouncing ideas off of other entrepreneurs, she can't get enough of this stuff, just like the rest of us, so don't be shy in reaching out. Check out those show notes and the links down there. Otherwise, Anne, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks so much, Brian. It's great to see you.